No, I don't wanna play no games. No, I don't wanna hear promises. You do you and I'll do me. That's just the way it is.
Boom.
Biddly, but yes, yeah. Here we go. Ain't nobody down round here. You know what time it is. Get that badger in and on and over here. Got accused of waffling on other day, so we'll keep going that way. You know how we do. The clock watchers have accused us of a waffle, so which sparks to mind probably what I'm going to eat tonight. I'm going to have potato waffles with me steak, methinks. Let's waffle through this. Don't want to upset the clock watchers too much. Quite a bit to talk about. I've not been on for a couple of days. The quick ship vids will keep flying in. I think I'm going to be doing the underlap on Wednesday this week as I'm busy on Thursday night. Quick ship vid. Solomon. A lot of sources now are saying, you know, how true these things are. You know, you never know. But apparently, he doesn't fancy a move to Leeds. Although there is some talk that he might potentially be. You know, one article says 2 hours ago it says there's a step forward in the Solomon thing, and we're actually a step closer to getting him for 17 to 20 million. And then there's a source saying he don't fancy it at Ellen Road anymore. He's enjoyed his time, but Marseille are in for him. I do think, to be honest, it's going to be difficult to get him at this point. I was quite hopeful sort of midpoint in season, but then I've always thought, to be honest, as this season sort of drew to an end, that Solomon would be fully assessing his options going forward. I think he probably thinks of himself of a standard that he's been at previously and a couple of years ago. You know, he'll really want it to be a Champions League cemented player, won't he? And I know we are aiming for that in the next 5 or 6 years, but ultimately, you know, we're some way off that. He's a 25-year-old lad. If he can get to Marseille or something, I'm not even saying that's particularly the best standard in the world, because I don't think it is. I think if he did well with Leeds, you know, we could really get somewhere with him. But just be interesting. I think it just comes down to what he wants to do, really. I do think there'll be a few clubs after him and about him. So 17 million apparently is what Levy wants, which isn't, you know, a ludicrous amount. So there will be a fair amount of clubs, I think, that will pay that. And he'd put some good numbers up, didn't he, this year? You know, particularly towards the end of the season, he got his rhythm back. So I thought he wavered slightly, sort of 2/3 at way through the season. But that's nature of beast. I thought we all did a little bit. Not we all, I wasn't playing, but the whole team sort of, you know, when we went through that slightly rough spell, which now I look back on and just think, you know, that's when people were saying we were collapsing and stuff. And then for the boys to do what they did, as we all know, tremendous. We are the Centurions. Bamford, they've all gone to Vegas on, like, you know, on Sesh, I think. My man Parag stepped in and said that apparently at the end of last season, he wanted them to go to Vegas with him and have a bit of a piss up and have a party, you know, for the promotion. He promised if they won playoffs that they'd do that. And he was apparently keen, my man, to step in and make sure that they get there this year. So Bamford was just doing an interview to his cousin, or like they said it was his cousin, but I don't know whether it's just, I mean, she's quite tidy, you know, which doesn't mean Bamford fancies her at all, but it's just an observation. Totally relevant observation. But I'm just trying to give you a glimpse of the interview. You know, she was fit. And she asked him if he would ever be open to a move to America, the MLS. And he did say, to be fair, that he'd be up for it, which surprised me that he said that. But then he did instantly go back into suggesting that he wants to. He was actually said that the Prem suits him, which I know will send everybody into overload here and into meltdown. But he said that the Premier League does suit him and he's keen to replicate what he did on the first year he came. Now, I know I've been tooting the horn of Bamford ever since I started the channel, but I still maintain, as long as we bring in players in, it's interesting. I'm going to talk about this a little bit in a couple of minutes, because I'm going to mention Aaronson and stuff, and there's been Paul Robinson talking about some stuff, but I don't know what the problem would be with having him as the third striker. I think Joseph probably gets moved on. Parisley is the current number one, so that leaves Bamford in second. If we bring in a striker, Peru and the new striker can have it out. If the new striker is shit, then we're going to need Bamford. So I don't want to end up in a similar situation that we was in this year in the Championship, where, you know, nobody wants Bamford back, and then ultimately it's like, well, Joseph's not quite cutting it, and now we're over relying on Parisley. So I do think we need to be careful in who we get rid of. James McAtee, that lad from the Man City, who is a decent young player. He's actually had a decent season at Man City for what it's worth, all things considered, because, you know, Man City have been quite poor. But it is a bit of a madness to say that Man City have been quite poor, really, when you they can still finish above Arsenal, who everybody said have had a decent season. They can still outdo them. So he's only 22 years old, 25 million apparently they want for him. Apparently, though, there's Notts Forest, West Ham, Crystal Palace all in for him. Even Bayer Leverkusen apparently are in for him. I can't imagine this one would happen, but that would be a fun signing. I do actually think. Proper young lad, decent. He's got 7 goals or something for him this season. He's actually played well for Man City this season. I think he's played like 29 games or something like that. I am guessing that it's not in my notes. But I know he's got a few goals. I remember him getting a few goals. They were playing when they were particularly poor as well, and Pep was sort of ripping it up a little bit. And his contract does end at the end of next season, so they do have to make a bit of a decision on him, really. So that would be mint. But as I say, if Notts Forest and West Ham, I mean, West Ham have been poor this year, or Bayer Leverkusen, he might want a big change. I think Crystal Palace we can compete with, but Notts Forest have obviously had a good season. So, although I do think they'll collapse next year. I think they're showing signs of collapsing now, so we'll see what happens with that. Paul Robinson reckons that Aaronson will be on his way out of the club, which I can't currently see this happening, but I do have to put a bit of a caveat on that because it does depend on the business that we do. I know no one likes to hear it, but Aaronson has had a good season this year, and the energy he brings next year will be very refreshing. I don't want to be reliant on him like we was in the Centurion season, but I would like, unless we bring in many additions, it's good. A similar thing to my Bamford statement. I don't want to be reliant on Aaronson next year, but if we're only bringing 110 in and then we're getting Aaronson out the door, it's like, well, what happens if this 10 doesn't perform? I don't want to end up in scenarios where Aaronson coming off at bench is not going to sort of let us down, I don't believe. He also mentioned that Firpo got exposed in the Premier League. I'm getting a bit bored of this one, to be honest, because I know there's some people want Firpo to sign on, some people don't. But I'm getting a bit bored of everybody saying that Firpo got exposed. Bogle, we got told by the Sheffield supporters when we signed him that he got exposed in the Prem. Most wing-backs, particularly at a club that have just been promoted, are going to get exposed defensively, aren't they? What they do give you is excellent work going forward, don't they? So I'm not trying to say that, Firpo can just bomb on and just do whatever he wants next season if he were to sign. Bogle the same. But we do need to work slightly towards our strengths. Yet again, I find myself saying I'm not going up with an inferiority complex and just thinking that Bogle and Firpo have to become like these old school fullbacks that just never move out their own half. It's that if that's how we create chances, we just need to make sure that, Tanaka and Ampadu are really solid at back and we have like a bit of a 4 block with the 2 centre-backs and they don't go wandering and we let Firpo and Bogle go forward respectively. If one goes forward, one goes forward, the other one stays back. Just be a little bit pragmatic about it. I don't think we'll get them both flying forward like we have done this year, but I still think we'll play with relatively attacking wing backs, even if we play as a 4. Some people try to push for the 3. My point is any wing back, any left back that we bring in is probably going to get exposed a little bit. I know Firpo got particularly exposed, but play to people's strengths as opposed to worrying about the weaknesses. Let Firpo get forward, and then if you've got players like Dan James that can put hard yards in, it might not be for Solomon that, playing left back with Firpo. It worked wonderfully this year. But when we need to be a little bit more defensive minded and Firpo wants to get forward, we might need a winger that can do a bit of both. It's just a random observation but I just don't want to go down this, right backs get exposed, left back will get exposed. I mean, Struitt's going to get exposed, isn't he? Rodon's going to get exposed. Ampadu's going to get exposed at times. Tanaka's going to get exposed. We're going to have poor games out. We're going to get beat. We're also going to concede goals, and quite a lot of them. And I don't want to be in that situation before anybody says that I think we should just go flying forward. But Farke doesn't even play like that anyway, so I just don't understand where the narrative's sort of coming from. Apparently, Betis spoke about that other day that they're after Firpo, but then there was an article where Barcelona potentially want him as their number 2, their number 2, 3. So their second number 3, not their right back, not their number 2, not the right back, their second left back. There's also been some nonsense about other managers, even though Farke has now had the backing. And this is what I mean. The 49ers, my man Parag stepped in. He's made it clear that Farke is the manager going ahead next year, but there will be some contingency plan if Farke fails early on. But they make something out of nothing, much like I do on this channel. So shout out to everybody that does follow, subscribe, like, and all that stuff. We're nearly at 5,000 subscribers. I'd really appreciate it if I can get to it before the start of the season. Been a red hot day. Absolutely mafting. Hope you enjoy my quick shit vids. If you don't watch them. It's easy by me. Simples. Peace out.
I don't wanna play no promises. You do you and I'll do me, that's just the way it is.
Boom.